Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, America. This is Wayne Bradley on Conservatives Cool Talk Radio. I want to thank you for joining me the first time on an AM show, and I'm really happy to be here this morning. Usually we do the shows in the evenings, and I wanted to change the format, and I have some very special guests today, so I think this will be a good time to start the AM show. Today's show I'm going to have Alan West on, who's running for Congress down in Florida, and I'll also have our former Congressman J.C. Watts on, who was recently in town to endorse Paul Welday, who's running for Congress here in the 9th District of Michigan. Been a very important week, a very historic week, and I want to also send a special congratulations to Tim Scott down in South Carolina, and also Bill Randall in North Carolina for their primary wins running for Congress this week. That's history right there, and I'm looking forward to having Tim on the show. I've had Bill on there before, so I want to say congratulations to both of those gentlemen for their winning their primaries this week. Also, it's been a very strange week when we're at day 66 of the oil spill, and yet we still have no clear-cut solutions on what we can do to stop this oil spill, and also the maintenance and cleanup of the beaches through Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, and I believe it was Florida, Louisiana, and Alabama, and it's getting worse and worse. Now, the thing that blew my mind about a week ago was the whole idea that they were complaining that the CEO of BP was out on his yacht for the weekend, which was Father's Day weekend, and the media was very upset about it, but they did not seem to have any issue with the president playing golf the whole day. And he's actually been on the golf course 6 or 7 times since this oil spill has occurred. Now, again, I want you to go into the minds of fair and what's right in the media. If this had been George Bush, who had been playing golf while this oil spill is going on, could you imagine the uproar because of his background in the oil industry, that they would say he didn't care, that he's not acting fast enough, that within 3 days in Katrina it was all his fault, and that he did such a terrible job. Well, it's day 65, and we're no closer today to getting this thing solved than we were the first week when it was all blaming everything on BP. So I'm hoping that the president gets the message, decides to step up and do what he needs to do to get this situation solved. We've had help from other countries that we've turned down. So, to be honest, I don't understand quite the thinking that we're using here in this situation, but the president better act soon, or he's going to have a bigger catastrophe than he ever could have imagined, because, again, this is starting to go to all the different tourist areas, and people are losing jobs, losing income, and for him to go ahead and make a moratorium on drilling, again, shows his lack of sensitivity to that area and what it's going to do to the job markets and how that affects people's lives. He's only thinking about all his environmentalist buddies who believe that this is what they want anyway. They want a moratorium on drilling. They want us to stop drilling for oil, period. That would be their ultimate goal, which, again, I don't understand with these environmentalists. It's almost like we're not supposed to live at all to support a green economy and a green earth. And again, if we want businesses that want to get into the business of supporting the green economy and invest in it, then they should. But the idea that our government and our tax dollars are being thrown towards this, which it could be a somewhat of a black hole as far as what's the science projects that are going on. All you have to do is look at Spain and look at the debt and the situation they're in to realize that this is not something that the government should have to supplement to create a green economy. If the product and the demand is there, the private sector will step forward and take care of that. So that, again, that's the difference in the leadership styles, and that's what brings me to today's guest. The president has shown so far that he hasn't grasped the concept of how important his position is and the people around him. It appears he has a bunch of yes men, and no one's there in the camp has solutions. This is the difference when you hire someone that's a community organizer than someone who has purely executive experience, who's had to make tough decisions. and this is what you're getting right now. So, I mean, I think people need to really pay attention, coming towards this next election cycle of the people that we're putting in place, because quite honestly, I believe a lot of these situations are over the president's head, and he just wasn't prepared and didn't understand the level of responsibility and culpability that was going to be laid in his lap, because essentially he's blamed everything on Bush over the last year and a half. Anything that goes wrong, it's George Bush's fault. Anything good, it's them, and they're moving forward to make things happen. So, again, I think that's the common difference with the gentleman that I'm having on my show today. Strong leaders, accountable leaders, as opposed to the president and his style, where he consistently blames others for his shortcomings and the tragedies that are going on in this area. So, my first guest, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, who's become quite, I would consider, a national star of the last year. He gave a speech that's had almost 2 million hits on YouTube, a very motivational, inspirational patriot, I would think. Again, people are listening to the message now, and I think that's what has struck a lot of people about the Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play the interview that I had with him recently, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you this morning for joining me on Conservative is Cool Talk Radio. I have a very special guest with me today, someone who I consider a personal hero of mine and the patriot, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Welcome, sir.
Well, thanks so much, Wayne, for having me, and greetings to your listening audience.
Thank you. I want to first say thank you for coming on the show. I know you have such a busy schedule. So far, obviously, you've become what I would consider a national star. How have you enjoyed this campaign so far?
Well, I think it's a great campaign, and you say national star. I mean, I don't consider myself that. It's very humbling, and it's an incredible honor to be considered all across the country as a person that is the right type of voice and leader to make a difference in our country right now. So it's a huge responsibility, but when the American people look to you for being a person that can go and create viable solutions for this country, I'm more than willing, and that keeps my energy level up.
Do you think a lot of that commitment comes from your extensive time in the military?
Well, of course it does, and it's not just my time in the military, but it's a legacy of service that goes back to my father in World War II, my older brother in Vietnam, and the 22 years that I served, and I passed that torch on to my young nephew, who is a Captain Herman West III, serving in the United States Army right now. So it really does come from that commitment of our family to this country.
And I remember hearing you saying in your speech that you continue that oath, even though when you were in the military, you gave the oath, and you continue it to this day, right?
You absolutely do. And what I tell folks is there's no statute of limitations on it. And that's truly the measure of a person that's a servant of this country and not someone that's just going to Washington, D.C. to be served.
Right. And so if elected to Congress, what will be one of the first things you'll do if elected to Congress?
Well, I think the most important thing is our economy. I think it starts with reforming our tax code, our tax system. The progressive tax system lends itself to class warfare, and I think that we have to get away from that. I'm a proponent of a flat tax to be instituted and to lower the personal income tax rate and also the corporate business tax rate. I think that we need to eliminate the capital gains, dividend, and the death tax, which is due to come back. And I think a great way to stimulate our economy is to use a suspension of payroll taxes until we get the right economic indicators. But also, I will seek to get on the House Armed Services Committee because I think the rules of engagement have to be examined and analyzed. I think that it provides the initiative to the enemy and not to our soldiers. And speaking of which, I mean, we have soldiers that are sitting in Fort Leavenworth that I think have been unjustly imprisoned, namely First Lieutenant Michael Behena, and I think one of the key things I'm going to seek to do is get those guys out of Fort Leavenworth.
Do you think with the way this current administration is operating, that they're treating our soldiers and even with the CIA, they're treating them almost as the enemy combatant and not the actual terrorists?
Well, you bring up a great point, Wayne, in that I think it was 2 weeks ago, the New York Times, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm sorry, New York Times wrote a piece about how we have instituted a pledge policy whereby fathers or tribal leaders can come in with a pledge that an individual will no longer support the Taliban, and we're releasing them on that, I guess on that recognizance. And so when you have a system whereby we're releasing people who have attacked our soldiers, maybe even killed our soldiers in some instances, but yet we're imprisoning our own, or we're trying to court-martial these SEALs for, allegedly punching a guy, we're upside down in our country.
Do you think a lot of that is at this point, is it a reflection of the current administration? He seems to have an issue with, I would say, the military, police officers in general. Is that a reflection of him and this current administration?
I think that it is a reflection of the current administration, but I think that it is something that is a holdover from the previous administration. The rules of engagement were established initially under the Bush administration, but the Obama administration has taken it to an incredible degree, and also continue the prosecution of our CIA agents and also our servicemen and women has just made a bad situation even worse. So I think that there are many things that this administration is doing that flies in the face of the military. Not going to Arlington National Cemetery on Memorial Day was one. There was nothing that was said, no message that was sent out from this administration on the 6th of June, which was the 66th anniversary of D-Day. And this past Monday was Flag Day, and also it was the 235th Army birthday. You heard nothing coming from this administration. And don't get me started about this Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal. The service chiefs asked for that to allow them to conduct a review, but this administration, of course, the House of Representatives, thought that special interest was more important than the interest of our men.
Is that something that frustrates you? Because as the president came in, he said that he would not be the one looking out for special interest groups, but it appears that he's gone in the exact opposite way, whether it be with the homosexual, the whole don't ask, don't tell, unions. Has he totally just broken the promises that he made to the American people?
Well, this president has proven that he is nothing more than a political hack and a liar. And I think that's even starting to frustrate the people on the left who are not getting what they wanted. So, when you elect a community organizer, you get a community organizer sitting in the White House, a person that is so far over their head, not able to make a decision. The only thing he looks at is bullying and establishing commissions and promoting a very liberal, progressive legislative agenda that is the antithesis of who we are in the United States of America.
With the whole thing, I spoke with Lt Pantano on that last night, and we both were talking.
Yeah, great young man.
Yeah, we were both talking about this trial in New York, and I asked him, and I asked you the same thing. Do you believe that this trial is more about putting the CIA and the former the Bush administration on trial than it is actually trying these terrorists?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the most important thing that we got to understand, Wayne, is that the Geneva Convention is very specific about non-state, non-uniform belligerents being captured on the battlefield. They are not deserving of rights, and definitely not deserving of our constitutional rights and their quote-unquote day in court. And if we continue this practice of taking terrorists and bringing them to the United States and lawyering them up, we're just going to get more terrorists because they believe that we are displaying weakness and we're not serious about doing what is necessary to find them and destroy them, pursue them, and to win this fight against Islamic totalitarianism and terrorism.
Now, another question I would ask you is that we seem to be very passive with Iran and all the terrorist states, but yet we're being, I would say, tougher to Israel at this point. How do you explain that, and what would be your stand on how we protect Israel?
Well, by protecting Israel, they're our staunchest ally. They're our best ally in the Middle East. They're the sovereign state that we were the first to recognize in 1948. And for this president to sit there with Mahmoud Abbas and have photo ops, which he did not do with Prime Minister Netanyahu. For the United States, for the first time, to side with the United Nations in condemning Israel is something that is absolutely heinous. And for us to not understand that Hamas is a terrorist organization that has in its charter the destruction of the state of Israel, and to continue to placate and try to have appeasement policies with Iran is only going to lead to eventually the going into the abyss of what could potentially be a great war in the Middle East. So I think that once again it comes back to not having a person that can stand upon conviction and commitment and can display strength. And so in the Middle East, he is totally disrespected and disregarded. And I think that today there's a poll that is coming out talking about how the Muslim world has no respect for this president after all of his apologizing tours that he did in Turkey and also in Cairo, Egypt.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand in their culture they don't respect passiveness. They respect.
They don't. Absolutely right. They respect strength and might, and we're not showing that. And there are some people in the world that you just got to put the hammer down on, and that is what the tribal Middle Eastern culture understands. And all this talk and compromise and negotiation gets you nowhere.
Yeah, their whole understanding is if you sit down and talk to them, that means they've already won. They don't.
They have already, absolutely. You're tracking 110%.
Thank you. Now, another issue that's obviously been on the horizon here is the illegal immigration issue. How do you feel about the law in Arizona, and what would you do to obviously improve the illegal immigration situation here in America?
Well, I'm thoroughly behind Governor Brewer and the state of Arizona 100%, and I came out and made that statement visibly, and I even spoke out against some members of the Republican Party who were siding against Governor Brewer. I thought that was not appropriate, and I thought it was very dangerous to the establishment of the rule of law, and that's who we are. Illegal immigration is illegal. That means the people are coming here breaking our laws, and if we do not enforce our laws, if we become a lawless society, then this great constitutional republic will be lost. And we have problems down here in Congressional District 22, which is what I'm running for, with the establishment of some sanctuary cities already. Jupiter is one. Lake Worth is becoming one. So I think that what Governor Brewer has done, many other states are going to start looking at, and I think that that's something also here in Florida we ought to be looking at, because it is about honoring our Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 addresses the repelling invasions. Article 4, Section 4. And yesterday we saw with their national parks that they are going to be closing down because of the threat of illegal immigration. And it's a sad day when our American citizens have to live under, a dark cloud and a threat from illegal immigrants, and our federal government is not doing anything about it. And I guess, according to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the federal government is even going to pursue suing our state.
Right. That's what I did. I saw that yesterday too. Now, do you think we should make it a federal issue, or do you think we ought to let each state handle it the way they see fit?
Well, the bottom line is this: if the federal government does not uphold the mandates of the Constitution, which to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, promote the general welfare of citizens, and provide for the common defense, if they're not willing to do that, then the 10th Amendment is very clear. The states have the right to do it. So for the Obama administration to say that they're going to take legal action or sue the state of Arizona, they need to look at themselves in the mirror and understand that they have not done anything, and the states are operating within their rightful constitutional mandate to step up to the plate.
Do you, just out of curiosity, do you think though that with that state bill that it does possibly lend itself to some people being harassed or being profiled at all?
No, it does not. And the bottom line is that why shouldn't we have the opportunity for our law enforcement to ask that question?
Right.
That's what it's all about. Look. When I go to catch an airplane, I get absolutely sick and tired of having to take my shoes off and take the jacket off and dump my pockets. I can't carry a bottle of water with me. I have to have a measure, aftershave and all the, shaving creams and all of this. But, I'm not breaking any laws. or anything of that nature. So I think that it gets to a point in the United States of America, it's not racial profiling. I'm sick of hearing that.
Right.
It's about trend analysis. And so we got a problem in this country, and if we keep trying to deny it, being the threat of illegal immigration, being the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, which is existing in our country, we're going to lose our nation.
Right. I mean, bottom line, they have to do it's police work, and that's what they have to do to make sure they're keeping their citizens safe.
Absolutely.
Now, with this oil spill in the Gulf, has that affected your district and your area yet? Has that been something that's creeping its ugly head up on the beaches near you?
Well, it hasn't come around the beaches. We're on the Atlantic coast side, the southeast Atlantic side. My district is a coastal district running from Fort Lauderdale up to Jupiter Inlet. It takes in Broward and Palm Beach counties. So it is a concern if that oil spill were to get to the Gulf Stream and whip around to the East Coast. It is a concern if there is some oil bubble beneath the surface that we're not seeing that could drip underwater. We need to be looking at that. But I think the biggest thing is this moratorium on drilling.
Right.
I believe that we have to evaluate and analyze and assess what happened on the Deepwater Horizon rig. We have to make sure that we institute the right emergency management and incident response procedures so that the fail-safe systems that obviously did not kick in on that platform. We got to do weekly, monthly drills and tests to make sure that that's not the case with our other platforms. But we can't put Americans out of work for 6 months, and we can't sit up here and say that we're just going to give up on developing our own oil resources. But we have to develop the full spectrum of our resources. So I see that as being the issue that we have going forward. Look, if we're not going to do it, that's not telling Russia and China that they're not going to do it.
Exactly.
So we're making ourselves more dependent on foreign energy resources. And we saw with the president's speech the other night, just the same as Rahm Emanuel says, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Exactly.
All this is an opportunity to push this cap and trade agenda, which will destroy our economy, which is what Spain has already shown with these green energy promotion. And once again, make us more dependent upon foreign sources.
Yeah, I was actually listening to someone talk about this bill, and they were actually saying that it would go to the extent of if you were trying to sell your home, that the government might come in and actually do an inspection to make sure you have the right kind of energy-efficient windows. I mean,
yeah, you're absolutely right. What you have to currently, you would have to go to what is called the California Green Standard. So you would have to actually get a license for your home from the federal government. You would have to have someone to come in and inspect your home to make sure that it meets green energy efficiency standards before, like you said, before you can sell your home. So once again, we have a federal government that is growing way outside the mandates of the Constitution. And this is nothing. This cap and trade is nothing more than behavior modification through taxation, which is just the same as the healthcare law, creating 111 new government agencies, 11 new taxes. This is nothing but a big grab for government.
Do you plan on trying to actually repeal that healthcare bill, or just maybe improve the bill once you're in Congress?
Well, I think the most important thing, first and foremost, the easiest thing to do is not appropriate to that bill, that legislation. So you just let it die on the vine, but then also start looking at how we can repeal it.
Right.
There may be one or two. I mean, protecting Americans with pre-existing conditions, that's a good thing. But most of that bill, most of that 2,000 some odd pages, is nothing more than a socialized medical system and the expansion of government. It does nothing to reduce the cost, and in the long term, it's going to kill our small businesses.
It can't be an actual reform bill without including tort reform. Would you agree?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the number one thing you have to look at is catastrophic litigation, which is driving up the cost. You talk to any doctor, and they'll tell you that. And so when you look at a state like Texas, which has tort reform there, you see doctors going there. You see medicine being practiced very well. You see the cost being lowered. When you look at a state like Florida, especially down here in South Florida, my district, where you have a large retirement community, doctors are coming here, and doctors are going under. They're being just swamped. So when you look at that aspect, when you look at we did nothing to breaking down the state-by-state restrictions on insurance agencies. When you look at the fact that illegal immigration affects our health care, we really did not do anything to solve this crisis.
Okay. Well, I think those are the things that people need to know. I think it's important, again, that people, the reason I've been having different people throughout the country come on the show and talk is because people need to understand that even though you're in Florida and someone, my listener, might be in California, you affect the laws. Once you're a congressperson, you affect the laws that affect the whole country. I think we learned that from the people up in Michigan when he finally passed that health care bill, that they see how important it is that we have to support the right candidates throughout the country.
Yeah, you got it absolutely right, because it's going to take 39 seats to be won in order to get the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand. And every person that sits there in the House of Representatives, which is the most influential and important body, legislative body, their vote makes a difference for all of Americans. I mean, I'll be a direct representative of the people of Congressional District 22, but I'll be a voice for all of America. And if people enjoy what you and I just talked about, if they go to www.gowest2010.com, they can learn more about our campaign.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you so much. It's truly been a pleasure having you on the show. I have one more question for you. I see you went to the University of Tennessee. How did you feel when Lane Kiffin left?
Good riddance. One of the things about SEC football is you really should not cross the Mississippi River or the Mason-Dixon line looking for a coach in the SEC. It's a tradition. It's a homegrown type of environment, and I'm glad that we've got Coach Dooley's son coming to be a part of our great program and tradition at the University of Tennessee.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Colonel Alan West. I really appreciate you coming on the show again. Like, you're a personal hero to me. I don't really get too many people that I can say that about, but I really appreciate you coming on the show. Can you give them the website address one more time so they can go on there and get more information and support you?
Absolutely, Wayne. It is www.gowest2010.com, and please sign up to get our email blast or any information, get on our mailing list, because we really love to get our message out. And we're closing in on 25,000 following us on Facebook.
Excellent, excellent. Well, good luck with the campaign. I can't wait to see you in November and take that gavel.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. God bless you, sir.
God be with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was my interview with Alan West, and I just want people to understand, if you listen to that interview and you listen to the clear-cut differences in the style of leadership, the integrity of the answers, it's such a defining difference in the way that the current administration looks at things and looks at the way we should deal with our enemies and our allies. Then if you listen to Colonel Alan West, the defining differences, the actual leadership. And again, it's going to be a tough job. He realizes that, but you have to do the things that are right. You have to support our allies and treat them like our friends and allies, and not alienate them, not make them feel like we're not there to support them. And I think that's what the current administration has done in regards to treating Israel. We've almost made them feel like we're suspicious of them now, that we don't trust them, we don't believe that the things that they're doing are moving in the right direction, and we just can't do that. We can't do that as a country. Morally, we have an obligation to protect Israel. Again, the only goals of these terrorist states is the destruction of the West and the destruction of Israel. They want the destruction of Israel first. Quite frankly, if Iran was able to get nuclear weapons, there's no question in my mind, and there's no question in a lot of other people's minds, that the first place they would go would be to Israel, because all you have to do is listen to them, listen to their rhetoric, listen to what their goals and their claims to be are, and you'll understand why it's so important that we cannot let them have nuclear arms. They're not only a threat to Israel, but they're a threat to the whole world and to their surrounding communities. These people are not scared to die, and that's where people need to understand. That's where the bigger disadvantage is that you're dealing with a combatant, an enemy that's not scared to die. you have no deterrence. You have nothing to prevent them from wanting to continue their same behavior. They believe what they're doing is morally correct, and we have to stand our ground and show them that we will not allow that to happen. And the president so far has been more of a negotiator, wanting to talk. And again, these gentlemen, just like I said with Alan West, is that once they begin to talk, they feel like they've won already. And that's just the way they operate. They respect the power of the gun and not the power of the tongue. And I think that's the only thing that President Obama so far has offered. A lot of lip service, a lot of talking. And again, that's playing right into the hands of these terrorists. They don't respect that. And we need to, as much as the world didn't like George Bush and Cheney, they respected them for the fact they wouldn't cross a certain line because they knew there would be repercussions that you would have to deal with. Now, these terrorists now, they don't care. They're willing to let us know they're making nuclear missiles. They won't let the UN inspectors in. Clear violations. And again, it's just a lack of respect. So we have to step up our leadership efforts, whether it be on the terrorist front, whether it be on the oil spill front. And I believe people like Alan West have those leadership capabilities to help get this country back on the right track. The call-in number is 347-996-3175. If you want to add anything to that, if you heard the interview and can appreciate where Alan West is coming from, please give me a call, 347-996-3175. Now, my second guest, again, he was the last black Republican congressman, and he retired about 7 years ago. Retired back to the private sector, personal life. He wanted to raise his family, and quite frankly, he's done that. He's been very successful in his business endeavors since he's left Congress, and it's going to be a great interview talking with J.C. Watts. Again, we're going from the future, which is Alan West, to past leaders with J.C. Watts. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play the J.C. Watts interview. Listen in. Thank you today for joining me on Conservatives Cool Talk Radio. I have a very special guest with me today. He's in Michigan. On behalf of Paul Welday, he's here for an endorsement. J.C. Watts, the former congressman. J.C. Watts, welcome to Michigan. How are you doing today, sir?
Wayne, I'm doing well. I'm delighted to be back in the state and making a few rounds and to be with a good friend today, and Paul Welday, and hopefully Paul can get elected. And when he asked me to do this, I said, Paul, I can come in and I can be for you or against you, whichever helps you the most. So he thought it would be helpful for me to be for him, but he's been a good friend, and hopefully he can get a shot to represent Michigan and their values in Washington, D.C.
Right, and right now, looking at the situation with the Congress, what kind of campaign people do you think we need to make the changes that are going to be necessary to move America forward? And obviously with Paul, do you believe he's the kind of candidate that's going to do that?
Well, Wayne, I've been in politics. I've been in business. I'm in business today. I've been in business before. I still get to preach 10 or 12 times a year around the country somewhere. So I was a youth pastor. I've been in big-time college sports, played professional football in the Canadian Football League. Now, I give you that resume for this one reason. I've been in many different arenas, and I understand in every one of those arenas, regardless of what arena we're in, the cheer of the crowd is so seductive.
Right.
And the cheer of the crowd will get you to the point that you think, I'm pretty good.
Right.
Man, I'm all of that. And as your grandmother would often say to you, boy, you might be some of that, but you ain't ever all of that.
Exactly.
And I think that's the key to getting it turned around. We have to recognize, the cheer of the crowd is so seductive that, you think you're all of that. And you lose sight of why you go to Washington. You go to Washington thinking it's a cesspool, but then you get there and you think it's a jacuzzi.
I got you.
And so I think, again, you have to be grounded enough to say, I want the facts. I want the truth. I'm not wanting to protect the Republicans' deal or the Democrats' deal. I want to get to the truth, to have best practices, use innovation, create competition, which all of those things are good for the consumer. And again, I think Paul Welday is the kind of guy that will be an adult, that will go and recognize the facts, will be for Republicans when they're right and be against Republicans when they're wrong. And I just think that's the kind of leadership and the kind of voting that we need in Washington.
I think that's something I've noticed from you, is that you spread the criticism on both Republicans and Democrats. What has disappointed you most recently, in particular with the Republican Party?
Well, I think, and I'm on record of saying this for the last 15, 20 years. I don't think Republicans will ever become the natural majority until they do a better job in establishing a deeper relationship with non-traditional constituencies. I'm not convinced that the establishment in the Republican Party that they're concerned about that, and I just think that they've got to make a better effort, and they've got to do better there. Secondly, I saw an issue, and it's one issue that probably disillusioned me more than any that I've dealt with in Washington or state government over the last 20 years, and that's the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac issue.
Right.
I saw Republicans protect Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on one side, and I saw Democrats protecting them on the other side, understanding if ever there was a blip in the housing market,
right,
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, their practices would destabilize the greatest economy in the world. And here we are today, recovering in an economy that we've had a meltdown. We've seen real estate prices deflated,
right,
40 to 60%, 90% in some cases around the country, and it's all because Republicans and Democrats both protected them in the name of campaign contributions. And those type of things, you've got to be willing to say, to see things in terms of right and wrong, not in terms of Republican or Democrat. And so, anyway, the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac issue just was one of those circumstances that I thought about my father, who said, "You don't ever want to meet your hero." You in that case, I discovered that although I knew it, that both parties are flawed. That issue just reminded me, or affirmed to me more than any other, that they really are flawed.
Do you think that's the same situation with the oil spill that's going on now, that both sides, were very cozy with the oil industry, and that's kind of the reason why, with this administration in particular, has moved slowly to actually handle the situation or move faster to get to the problem?
Well, I can tell you, and I think, Wayne, the press is in large part, well, just let me say, had that been George Bush or John McCain, boy, you would see headlines,
exactly,
Republicans in bed with big oil. And now I will say, probably prior to 2008, 65% of BP's money probably went to Republicans. But when Democrats became the majority and we had a Democrat administration, I bet you if you look at those numbers today, the majority of their money is going to Democrats. Companies like that, they're prostitutes. They want to be in bed with whoever's in the majority.
Right.
And again, I'm not anti-BP. I'm all for making a profit. I'm all for knowing that profit is going to create jobs and create opportunities. So I'm all for profit and opportunity. But at the same time, I think it's disgusting to where the Democrat Party today would make it look like it's
still blaming it on Bush.
Still blaming it on Bush. But if you peel that onion, you recognize the last couple of years, because of who's in the majority, most of their campaign contributions went to Democrats. And so it shouldn't be. If it's wrong for one, it should be wrong for the other.
Right.
And so, but I think with the BP spill, I think that was in large part a matter of just a slow response. I think I used to be an oil and gas commissioner in Oklahoma. I think BP, in my opinion, I have no science, no factual evidence of this, I think BP wanted to make that well a commercial well, because once you seal it, once you cap it, the well is lost, and we see what kind of oil is pumping out. I think they had
another plan.
Illusions of trying to save the well, and they were slow to respond. The administration, obviously, they were slow to respond, and now we've got a mess on our hands. So I think the one, Katrina's been mentioned. I think the one similarity, you can't compare the loss of life in Katrina with the loss of birds and down in the Gulf. But I will say this: the similarity in the two of those circumstances was just how slow both administrations were to respond, be it Katrina or on the Gulf. Obviously, Bush paid a price. President Obama's administration, I think people have tried to, prop him up as best as they possibly can. However, I will say, I do see where the press is starting to kind of tweak him a little bit more.
Ask some more questions.
Yeah,
basically.
That's right.
I had a few questions from some of my followers on Twitter, and they wanted to know, one, do you regret kind of supporting or giving Obama support when he was running for president, and how do you feel he's done so far with his job? And the other question being, how do you think, how would you grade him? He gave himself a B+. How would you grade him?
Well, I don't know where it comes from that I supported Obama.
Basically, you didn't want to support John McCain, so it came to a decision of one of the two, and that people assumed the only reason you might have supported him because he was an African American candidate.
Oh, well, and of course that's an assumption
right.
that probably no other Republican in the country had to deal with that
exactly.
assumption, but. The fact of the matter is, I campaigned for John McCain. I gave John McCain money. So, but I think where that possibly comes from, in 2008, September of 2008, there was an article written that they interviewed some high-profile Republicans that happened to be black, and I was one of them. And I said at the time, considering that the Republican establishment takes evangelical Christians and urban conservatives for granted, considering the fact that Republicans have spent like drunken sailors, consider the fact that Republicans have gone to jail because of corruption, consider the fact that Republicans have become too arrogant for their own good, I said, what's the difference in us and them?
Right.
And they say, oh, he must be a closet Obama supporter. Now, a white Republican could have said that, and that they never would have said he must be a closet Obama supporter. And I said, this isn't about President Obama. This is about the Republican Party.
Right.
This is about me tweaking my party and not allowing my party to grade its own test, because if you grade your own test, what happens, Wayne? You always make a good grade.
What can the Republicans do to reach out more and that's something I'm battling with myself. What can we do to reach out more to, like you said, other constituents, obviously young people, minorities? What can we do to further that cause within the Republic?
Well, two things. Let me close the circle on the kind of grade that I'd give President Obama. I think the president's made one strategic mistake. I think he bit off from day one a whole lot more than he could chew. The total focus should have been the economy.
Right.
Getting the economy on track, creating jobs, and not government jobs, because with the stimulus, whatever jobs been created there's no infrastructure that sustains those jobs. They're temporary jobs. You need jobs in the private sector that you can sustain those jobs over a 20, 25-year period of time. Those government job stimulus, they go away after the project has been completed. So I think he should have focused on the economy. And, in terms of what kind of grade he should get, just look at what the numbers say. I mean, he's gone from 65% approval to 67% approval, to some polls being as low as 43% approval.
Right.
He's lost 20 points with independents. So obviously, the president, again, grading your own test, you get a much better grade than you do when you allow someone else to grade it. What should Republicans do in terms of establishing a deeper relationships? Republicans have to have it in their DNA to want to do it.
Exactly.
The establishment, it's not Wayne's job or J.C.'s job or Elroy Saylor's job or Michael Steele's job. It's our job as Republicans. And until it becomes a part of our DNA, it's never going to happen. And I'm just not, Wayne, and me personally, my personal experience, I've just not seen it in the DNA of the establishment in our party that's important to them.
Exactly. And one last question a lot of people want to know, do you have any plans for 2012 yet? Do you plan on getting back involved in the public forum?
Well, it's not on my bucket list.
Okay.
Seeing a Duke, North Carolina game and that Matchbox down in Duke, or being in Notre Dame Stadium to watch a football game, or going to Rome to see the Coliseum. Those things are on my bucket list.
Gotcha.
Me running for office again, I can't say that I wouldn't do it, and God might provide an opportunity for me to step up again at some point. And I'd surely be open to it, but it's surely not something that I get up every day planning to do or strategically making moves to do. If the opportunity presents itself, I'll take a look at it. I looked at the governor's race in Oklahoma last year. People in Oklahoma's been good to me. I think I could have won it, but I'm making memories with grandkids.
Right.
I'm enjoying having a little bit of my life back. Business is going well, and I just didn't think the timing was right. So may do it again someday, but
keep our fingers crossed.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Keep our fingers crossed. I've had a lot of people say that we need you in 2012, so please keep an open mind, and we'll definitely give you the encouragement you need to keep open your mind.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, I'll give you that. I'll keep an open mind.
That's all we can ask for. Thank you very much for the interview. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
That was my interview with Alan West. As you can see, I tried to squeeze it out, people. I tried to get him to give us a morsel. Would he be willing to run in 2012 in some sort of capacity to help this country out again? So, like I said, we just have to keep our fingers crossed and hope that he gets involved in 2012. What did you think of those interviews? Give me a call, 347-996-3175. I won't be on the air too much longer, but just wanted to hear if you were listening in. What did you think of those interviews? The call-in number is 347-996-3175. What do you think about the new leaders that are coming through and being elected into D.C.? Again, as I've been talking to candidates throughout the country, there's one thing that I've definitely noticed. The military background of a lot of the candidates is something that I guess, again, I'm impressed with, and I feel like most of these gentlemen feel like the call to duty has not been fulfilled yet, and that's why they're continually, again, getting involved in the political process to help make this country better. Next week, I'm going to have on my show, on next Wednesday, I'll have Rick Barber, who's running for Congress in Alabama. Again, someone who has strong conservative principles, believes in smaller government, looking to get this country back on the right track. And again, it just plays a lot into he has a military background also. I think that is a theme that I've seen across the country. And again, I can't do anything but respect that, because they said that the oath doesn't stop when I come back from serving duty. It never stops. And protecting this country is a priority to a lot of these gentlemen: Sean Belot, Lario Pantano, Alan West, Bill Randall, all these gentlemen, Les Phillips, again, Les. Everyone has they come from military backgrounds. And I think that plays a strong part in their pride in their country and wanting to defend the principles of this country that have made it great for so long. So I'm really happy to see the quality candidates that the Republican Party is moving forward with in 2010. Again, I think that only spells trouble and disaster for the Democratic Party and their out-of-control spending, the insistence on big government, that bigger government is better, that there's no problem for them to needlessly get more involved in our lives, require more documentation. Again, this is all part of a strategy and a ploy to increase the role of government and to make it bigger. At some point, the way things are going now, that we will rely on government for very large portions of our life. That we'll rely on them for our health care. They're producing all the automotive. They own two of the largest automotive companies in the country. And again, they're going forward on this cap and trade bill. They've used the whole oil spill as another reason to politicize things and to take advantage of a situation, pushing their green agenda. And again, I think it's a shame that naturally he's not listening to the people, not focusing on what we've all been focusing on over the last year and a half, which is improving the economy. And you don't do that by just writing blank checks out to people. In the Detroit area, I feel like the only thing that I can see that this stimulus project did was just give money to construction company. They tore up the whole Detroit area. Somewhere that might take 10 minutes for me to get to now, it takes 20 to 30 minutes doing what I would consider unnecessary projects. But when you get federal dollars, you have to spend them or you won't get them again. And that's the kind of mentality that we're dealing with here. And again, if it's something that's a good project, that's bringing an economic balance to a community, that's going to be the positive to that. But it won't last because it's not this is an artificial job. This is something that was created strictly with the hard-earned money of the taxpayers, and really at this point, not even the taxpayers now. This is going to be paid for by my children that are 1 and 7, and possibly by their children. These debts that we're taking on now, we will regret for years to come, and we will look back on this as one of the most frivolous spending administrations in our history. We've spent more money in the last year than all the other presidents combined. I want people to think about that. We've taken over another $1 trillion and added to our deficit. Spending-wise, this is something, again, that it took all the presidents combined up to George Bush to equal the kind of spending that's been done in a year and a half. And I think, again, that's the kind of reckless behavior, regardless of what the people are saying, regardless of what their demands are. This president has proven to be quite arrogant and not willing to listen. They have an agenda, and they're going to stick to that agenda regardless of how it could affect people. Just like with this moratorium on drilling, the scientists that were involved, 7 of the scientists said that they did not recommend shutting down the drilling. It's safety issues that are involved. It potentially could get worse when you don't have people working and maintaining these areas and these workstations. So again, the president and his administration, they have their own agenda. If seven scientists that you guys have retained to give you the information tell you that it's not necessary to do a moratorium, then you do it anyway. Then the judge, a federal judge, removes the moratorium. You say you're still moving forward. It shows total disregard for the law, total disregard for what the people want. And again, when you have your own agenda, this is what you have when you have a president that has a nothing but a green and liberal agenda to move this country forward. And this is what you're stuck with. You're stuck with a bunch of ideas with no motion to them. We talked about building this green economy when it's not even proven that this is what's necessary. I mean, we're going to make, the government's trying their best to make an economy, and I can't help but believe that some of that's tied to all the GE connections and George Soros connections. There are people out here that are positioning themselves to be able to capitalize on what this administration is doing. And I'm sure, again, that's no surprise. Some of the top people, some of the president's cabinet administrators and things like this, his brother is one of the leading PR lobbyists for BP. Am I really to believe that some of this has not been handled behind closed doors, and at this point this is just there's a lot of political posturing while jobs are being lost, while people are being out of work because of the moratorium. You have people like in Pensacola, Florida, which are tourist towns now, that are you got oil washing up on the beaches, with again severely hurts the touring, the tourism industry. This is summer break, so you have a lot of people that want to go out and go on vacations, but now they're concerned about the beaches and the water. That again, that severely hinders the places that rely on tourism to stay alive. And then again, when you take the whole equation of shutting down the rigs and the moratorium on oil drilling, now you have a bunch of people that were working 2 weeks ago that don't have, that now aren't working. And again, that severely hinders and hurts an economy and hurts the local economy. If it was proven that it was a scientific fact that this moratorium was going to help the area out and somehow make the situation better, then so be it. But when you have the scientists telling you that that's not the situation, you really have to wonder about this president's agenda. And again, we have a lot of questions about that. You can go from whether it be the financing or how we're moving forward with financing, the health care bill. And I just think that people are frustrated, and it's time for the American people, again, to make your voices heard. Do it the smart way. Continue to rally. Continue to call your local congressmen and your local senators. Those are the people that you can make a difference with, and they'll listen to you, but you have to be persistent, and you have to have a clear-cut message of what you want. But the leaders nowadays are definitely listening to the people, and if you have a good conservative leader in your area, he's more than likely listening to your complaints. It might bring them directly to the footsteps of the president. So I encourage people to do that. Next Saturday, I'll be speaking in Youngstown, Ohio at a Tea Party, so I'm looking forward to going down there to talk a message of freedom and independence, winning ourselves off of the government, and again, making a difference politically. I think the Tea Parties have shown now, if organized and rallying the right way, that they can be effective. Tim Scott was supported heavily by the Tea Party movement. And again, I think that people, African Americans, need to pay more attention to that, because race is not an issue with the Tea Party movement. I can tell you that. It might be, you're going to have single people out there that are going to try to make that an issue, but overall, I've been welcomed with open arms to multiple Tea Parties throughout the country. I'll be speaking in Beaufort, South Carolina on 9/12. The Tea Party movement is about independence. It's about freedom, and that doesn't have color lines. And I think that the more that people recognize that and get in tune with that, the better off this situation is. The Tea Parties have been very supportive of common sense conservatives, including Allen West, including Tim Scott, including Bill Randall. And again, I don't believe that all these people are looking at like, let's support the black candidate. They're saying let's support the best candidate. And that's exactly where we're at now, supporting the best candidate. So I'm looking forward to this election cycle. The Democrats are going to have some real problems moving forward, because again, they're not listening to the people. It's been almost the arrogance of the arrogance of this administration, not willing to listen to the people. That's going to cost not only possibly in 2012 his job, but Democrats in this 2010 election, and even some incumbent Republicans are probably going to lose their seats because they did not stick to their principles and their guns, and they let this administration just kind of go wayward, and that's the situation we're in now as a country. So I really think that we have to vet our candidates more. I'm going to be doing a show soon, hopefully on the I Caucus and their importance to the whole political process. We have organizations now that are independently vetting people, and I think that that's something we need to pay more attention to in the future. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll be bringing someone on to talk about that also. So I want to thank everyone that was listening. This has been my first morning show. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. I want you to listen to Conservatives Cool Talk Radio and go to the website conservativescool.com. Thank you. God bless you, and have a great day.